up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Pasquinelli's Point. Before we get into the show, I want to say this is my brother Jeff.
My name is Jeff.
We are here to do a dual podcast because I know you guys have been asking for it. So please do me a favor, like, comment, and subscribe. Comment down below. Tell me if you like the two-person podcast better than the one-person podcast. I could possibly make this a thing. I am the creator of the show. So also, this is my musical expert. So with that being said, let's get to the point. So today we're going to do a top 5 artists of all time. And the way we did this list is I did mine based on personal influence and how it impacted my life. And he did his.
I kind of did it, how commercially successful they were, how popular, how many people liked them, how many records they sold. Also, how innovative they were, how creative, and the sounds that they brought to, music history, and how impactful they were on music history.
So, the number one artist, we both have the same artist. So we are going to go talk about that in full as one group. So, the Beatles. Everybody knows who the Beatles are. My favorite Beatle is Ringo Starr. My favorite song is Let It Be. I know you're going to say, Ringo Starr, come on, man. But it's just, I like an underdog story. Anyways.
No one likes Ringo.
Favorite song, Let It Be. Favorite album is Abbey Road with songs like Oh Darling, I Want You, She's So Heavy, Here Comes the Sun, Come Together. Great songs. And the reason I like the Beatles so much is because as I discovered the Beatles with the album Please Please Me, it's these adolescent kids who are learning how to be pop stars basically, but they're making different kind of music. It's more love songs and poppy stuff. And as they grew, they changed their sound. And as I grew, I listened to different Beatles records, which kind of changed me as a person. Different records have different sounds, and the farther you go into their career, the more they change. As like the psychedelic, Sgt. Pepper's, and up to Let It Be, the album. So that's personally why I like the Beatles.
Oh yeah, a lot of good reasons to like the Beatles, obviously. For me, I can't really pick a favorite. It's a tie between Paul and George. They're both just, mastered the craft. And George is, so insightful. He's the quiet one, but when he does speak, he's got a lot to say. So that's, they're all kind of powerful in their own way, but John and Paul wrote most of the songs, obviously. But they're, one of the most influential bands of all time. They're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as the Beatles, and then as solo artists, which they did go on to have, some pretty decent solo careers. But yeah, they had a number of different sounds. They were all over the place. There's still songs that I hear where I don't even recognize that it's the Beatles, until I look at the artist. But they changed music history forever. Beatlemania and all of that, it was the first of its kind. So it was really, like you were saying, that they were kind of, experimenting themselves as far as that whole process and how it goes. But they changed music forever in only a span of 10 years, which is a lot to say for them. And they also are the best-selling artist, if you wouldn't have guessed, 600 worldwide million units, CDs, albums. But my favorite album is the White Album, which is actually self-titled The Beatles, but it's all white. It's a double EP, got over like 30 songs and some great ones, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, and Dear Prudence, and Obla Di Obla Da, and just, back in the USSR, tons of them. But they're the most influential band. And another thing that I always liked about the Beatles is they were a little bit before their time. They kind of paved the way, as far as, speaking out on things like war and civil rights. And they were active in those areas, which was really cool to see from a young group of guys like that, taking a charge and, doing something about it.
For sure, yeah.
That was powerful, So, not only, music history, but even history itself. So my top 3 was Let It Be was also in there. Obviously, George is a great artist. Something, that's his song. That's my favorite song by George Harrison. And then Yesterday, one of my favorite Beatles songs. Really powerful, acoustic song that I can never get enough of. Also, only won 4 Grammys while they were together, which is pretty surprising. Only 10 years, but for how popular they were, still pretty surprising.
Definitely, that's definitely surprising.
Oh yeah, I tell you something. I think you'll understand when I
So my number 2 is Jimi Hendrix, and that's Jimi, not Jimmy. So Jimi Hendrix, my favorite song. It was hard to choose between Red House and Catfish Blues. I went with Red House. Red House has got a great sound, definitely very funky, and the story to the song is pretty great. My favorite album is Band of Gypsys Live, Fillmore East, New York. And that is where he plays Machine Gun. Great song. He really just tears it up on guitar.
That's a great guitar.
And to me, like in the days of smoking and doing a little bit of experimenting myself, that's kind of where I first heard Jimi Hendrix. I first listened to Purple Haze, but as like the longer I listened to him, the more I grew to love him. Along Came the Watchtower, Foxy Lady, all these different songs. But what makes it so great about Jimi Hendrix is he's a sit back, relax, and kind of chill music. It's very, very relaxing. You listen to a guy play the guitar, and he makes it sound like nobody before him made it sound. And it's incredible, really. I mean, the guy played with his teeth behind his back. He lit a guitar on fire, and the guy was left-handed. He had to play on a right-handed guitar. Incredible the way he could tear.
They were made.
Right,
Yeah,
before they were made, he tore it up on a right-handed guitar, and he was lefty. Man, was that guy something else.
Yeah, I mean, which if you're a guitar player like myself, that's extremely hard because all of the strings are backwards. You pretty much have to play everything backwards. So, I mean, a couple guys did that, but Jimi Hendrix was, with what he did and how he was kind of like a guitar god, yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to follow it up with my second artist with another very rocky blues artist, probably one of the best rock bands ever, Led Zeppelin. I mean, how could you not love Led Zeppelin? Their main lineup, of Bonham and Robert Plant and Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones was together for 12 years. Jimmy Page wrote most of their music, and as a guitar player, he's one of my biggest influences. He is technically sound. He has sounds that are created on the guitar that, were super innovative, like playing with the bow from a violin on his guitar, which is something that wasn't, really seen a lot, but it's like one of those cases where, Jimmy Page, only a guitar god like that, or Hendrix, one of those guys, could do that stuff.
Definitely.
And then another thing that sells Led Zeppelin for me is Robert Plant. He's got one of the greatest voices, in my opinion. They're the third best-selling band of all time, behind the Beatles and the Eagles, which is...
Wow, the Eagles, that's pretty surprising, second. I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, the Eagles are definitely up there, and they got a lot of hits themselves. But favorite album, it's really got no name. It's just got picture art of like an old man with sticks and a cane. But most people call it's Led Zeppelin 4 because it was after their Led Zeppelin 3 album and, followed suit. But great album. If you're a Led Zeppelin fan, if you're a music nerd, they got Black Dog and Rock and Roll, Stairway to Heaven, their masterpiece.
That's iconic.
Misty Mountain Hop, When the Levee Breaks. And another favorite one off that album, which is in my top 3 songs by them, is Going to California. Great acoustic ballad. You got Robert Plant, just nice, different kind of side of things for Led Zeppelin, but still destroys it. They're playing an acoustic song and, they're jamming. You got John Paul Jones on the mandolin, and it's great. Same thing with Heartbreaker, You got Bonham keeping up on the drums, just a steady rhythm, just banging him out, and Jimmy Page is on his thing doing the riffs. So, it's just great to see. That song is always one of the top ones for me. And I'm Gonna Leave You, Babe, which is a perfect example of a song that really can show off Robert Plant's vocals. Maybe not the best song, but definitely one of them. And that's what I always liked about Led Zeppelin. They were all masters of their own craft. And there were certain songs where, you could kind of see others step back and one person shine.
Which is kind of crazy. Our 2 lists, we didn't really talk about them. Both our number 3s are rap artists, which I thought was kind of crazy. My number 3 is Eminem. My favorite song by Eminem is Criminal, which is on the Marshall Mathers LP. My favorite album is the Slim Shady LP with songs like My Name Is, Role Model, If I Had, Come On Everybody, Guilty Conscience. I mean, it's just like a great group of songs on that. And I think personally what the reason I really got into him is because I wasn't allowed to listen to him. I'm a badass little kid just trying to listen to music I'm not supposed to. My cousin bought the album for me, the Marshall Mathers LP. We listened to a couple songs. It was very vulgar. We weren't allowed to listen to it, but I found a way to listen to it anyways. And it is vulgar, but it's just the rhymes and the things he talks about. It's just so great. And to me, the number one thing about Eminem is his staying power. The guy is a white guy in a predominantly black culture. Rap is a black culture, and the way that he rose to prominence in that is kind of crazy, and all those guys really do like him, and a lot of them look up to him. And I think Eminem kind of paved the way for other white rappers to actually get into the game. Otherwise, it was like there is no way a white rapper is going to get into the game. And I personally think that Eminem kind of influenced or paved the way for my brother's number 3.
What? My name is. My name is. His name's Sadie. My name is. My name is. What? My name is. His name.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. He definitely was, breakthrough in that aspect of things. But yeah, Mac Miller, rest in peace. But also known as Easy Mac, Larry Fisherman. He's one of my personal favorite. Straight out of Pittsburgh. This dude did a little bit of everything. Played the guitar, played the bass, played the piano. And I mean, he started when he was 15. So, you're starting at 15, that's in 2007. I was 11 at the time. So, it's just crazy to me. But, then I started listening to him. I mean, Donald Trump kind of put him on the map for most people.
Definitely. That's
and then,
the first
as
time
far
I
as
heard
that happened, then,
That's why all my bitches bad. They see this crazy life I have and they and all. We gon' win. You can take the lose or draw. What I'm in. Got these hoes who used to play me and they.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, Blue Slide Park, and that was a really big one for a lot of people, especially when, you're just starting to listen to him. But one of the reasons I love him so much, I mean, there was a relevance to his music for me, as he grew up, kind of like how he said with the Beatles, as he grew up, I grew up in a really, during my formidable years, when I was in middle school and high school
sure.
and even in college. And I remember coming back from college after graduating and hearing he OD'd and cried for a long time. And it's still super sad to me that he died, just because, I feel like, through his music, I was so close to him. But I mean, you grew up with him and, watched him and listened to him evolve as, he went from a rapper, this young rapper, on like albums like Kids and like Blue Slide Park, where it's kind of like frat rat, younger, to an artist, to where he really, became more expressive and experimental with what he did. And, that was big. He created different sounds and just really became more of an artist than just a rapper. Right. There was a lot more to his music, a lot more substance. Definitely. For sure. So my top 3 songs of all time, ROS, love that song off his Good AM album. One of my favorites. Senior Skip Day, I love. That's just, young Mac being goofy and, having a good time with his friends. Super catchy rhymes, nothing too clever, but still just, great song, catchy. And then Best Day Ever, which is, a classic for him for sure. And then my favorite album of his was The Divine Feminine. I mean, that's, an album that I don't even have to skip a song. I can listen to, through the whole way. Plus, he got some great features. Kendrick Lamar's on there, and he's got Anderson, .Paak?
Yeah,
Anderson
.Paak.
.Paak. So, I mean, so he's got some great artists in there.
No, but that's alright with me. Take it nice and easy. Took a flight to see me. Send you back home with a light that's beaming. My whole team.
So I'd like to add too, like Mac Miller is, I like Mac Miller as well. I listen to him quite a bit, and one of my favorite songs by him is Kool-Aid and Frozen Pizza. I feel like that gets lost in the shuffle sometimes. That was one of my favorite
that's
songs
definitely a big one for me. I mean, that was the thing, I mean, he had songs where they were party songs and just, cool and chill, but like as he got older, you could see him, talk about, how higher ideas in his music, you know,
Right.
Your purpose on earth, and you know what you're doing here and what makes you happy.
Definitely,
just
definitely.
a little bit more than what, you know, especially when he would rap. He would even do it in his rap songs, and you know, it's a lot more than what, you know, some artists do or some rappers do.
For sure. So my number 4 is Queen. Obviously, that's why I'm wearing a Freddie Mercury shirt. My favorite
Galileo.
person in the band is Freddie Mercury. My favorite song, it was very hard to decide. It was either Somebody to Love or Don't Stop Me Now. I kind of just said both. I know it's kind of cheating, but my favorite album is Jazz, which has Don't Stop Me Now. It's got Bicycle Race. It's got Fat Bottom Girls. And
It's a lot.
yeah, right. And to me, I know he said he's a big fan of Robert Plant's voice, and you know that's his opinion. I personally think that Freddie Mercury has the best voice, but that's always up for debate. Please, down in the comments, let us know who you think has the best voice.
Yeah, for real.
There's a different type of rock atmosphere with Queen. It's you know, you listen to hard rock or the Beatles, which is classic rock, but then you go and you listen to them, and they're like, they have hype rock, which is like, you know, We Will Rock You, We Are the Champions, but then they have
Yeah,
like
like those anthems.
right, and then they have like opera rock kind of, which is a little different. And to me, and it's obviously up for debate, but I think one of the most iconic songs, maybe the most iconic song, is Bohemian Rhapsody. Every time you listen to it, you can't help but not sing. You can't skip it. It's such a good song.
Oh, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Queen has definitely got their own sound as far as, you know, when you think of rock bands go. But another kind of rock band, if you'd like to say, that I have, my 4th artist, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. They're great, you know, straight out of LA, some LA boys. Been around since 1983, which I did not know.
long time.
1983 until now. They've taken a few breaks in between. You know, obviously the lineup consists, you know, Anthony Kiedis, Flea, Chad Smith, and then their guitarists switched out quite a bit. But John Frusciante, who's pretty much been their most commercially successful guitarist, most of their more popular music and albums, like, you know, Californication, Scar Tissue songs and albums, you know, are off that album like that. You know, Can't Stop, the really big ones, Under the Bridge, you know, Suck My Kiss, those are all his. Those are his guitars. So, you know, Rock and Roll Hall of Famers. But you know, my favorite album for sure is Stadium Arcadium. You know, John Frusciante coming off By the Way with them, and then, you know, going into, because he left for a while because he had very serious drug problems. Then he rejoined in '98 and came back, and then when he came out with Stadium Arcadium in '06, it was like boom, double EP, and you got Snow Hayo and Danny California and, you know, Slow Cheetah and just
Cheetah.
Tell Me Baby and Hump to Bump, all these powerful, funky songs where it's like the Chili Peppers are back. And then after that, you know, great successful album, he left. And you know, he left in '07, and they took another, you know, the Chili Peppers took a hiatus for a while, and now Chili Peppers fans, now my friends, he's back once more, and I cannot wait to see what they're gonna release. It's gonna be great. But I love them, you know, for great reason. You know, they're just altogether badass. Like, you know, they're going to play the Super Bowl, and people are like, you know, are they going to come out with their shirts off? Of course they're going to come out with their shirts off. Are you fucking kidding me? It's the Chili Peppers. I mean, they're punk, they're funky, they're anything you want. They have a bunch of different sounds as well. But, I mean, most of all, they got that energy. You know, I mean, I've heard people say that they're not that great live, but I mean, you got Anthony Kiedis up there at 50 years old, you know, singing these you know, lyrics, and you got John Frusciante doing backup vocals, and you just get into it. I mean, they got energy at their live, you know, live shows like, you know, I've never seen before, kind of like the Rolling Stones for their age, you know. So, but just a great band, and my 3 favorite songs are Scar Tissue, Dosed, and then I couldn't choose between the Zephyr song or Can't Stop, so it's a tie.
The truth is some do. Go write your message on the pavement. Burn so bad, I wonder what the wave meant. White heat is screaming in the jungle.
My number 5 is totally different from the rest of my list. I went with Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra has my favorite song, which is That's Life. My favorite album, which is Nothing But the Best. He also has my favorite holiday song, which is Jingle Bells. Definitely check it out.
There's a lot of them.
His Jingle Bells are totally different. And the reason I like him so much is, you know, growing up in a old school like Italian family, there wasn't rock music or rap music played. It was always, you know, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Tony Bennett, you know, now even Michael Bublé. Like, that's the kind of music we listened to when we were hanging out together. And, you know, it's a big influence from my grandmother. There was no listening to that rock and roll garbage or that rap garbage. She didn't like that. That's what she liked. So, you know, we listen to Old Blue Eyes all the time, and he holds a special place in my heart because my grandmother isn't around anymore. So every time I listen to him, you know, I always think of her. She's just got, you know, he's got this charisma that makes you fall in love with him. And there's just so many good songs to count. You can't count them all.
Funny as it may seem, some people get their kicks stepping on dreams.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Frank Sinatra, one of a kind, you know, huge icon. And that's kind of the same route I went, not the same particular music, but Michael Jackson, you know, Region Rat, gotta love it. Gary, Indiana.
G.I.
So, you know, started with the Jackson 5 in '64. He was the 8th child of the Jackson family, so that's pretty crazy. He started a solo career in '71, and, you know, he kind of just took off. He's one of the best-selling music acts of all time. 350 million records sold, which compared to the Beatles, about 600. So, I mean, he's, you know, pretty close as far. I mean, he was only one guy. So, but Thriller is the best-selling album of all time. You know, it's stayed that way for a long time. So we'll see if that ever gets broken. Another record he has for the most Grammys in one night with that Thriller album. He won 8, and that's pretty much unheard of for the Grammys. I mean, you see it happen sometimes where someone takes over, but to win 8 is a lot. So he also has 13 Billboard Hot 100 number ones, which is more than any artist. And he's the first artist to have top 10 singles in the Hot 100 in 5 different decades, which really shows you how big he was and for how long.
Talk about staying power.
I mean, 50 years, half century,
Right.
you know. So he's also been inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame 2 times, which is the only person who's ever done that. And he's the only recording artist to be inducted into the National Museum of Dance and Arts. And to get to that, that's one of the reasons I love him. I mean, I like to dance. Most of the time it's inebriated dancing, but, you know, you got Michael, who was an entertainer. He was a dancer, you know, he was a singer. He had a great voice, but then, you know, he also come on songs with this, you know, and, you know, you get that, and I mean, you love it. It's so great because he's so creative and, you know, he's himself. There's no one that could be like Michael Jackson, you know. But my favorite album is Thriller. Kind of hard to argue it with the 8 Grammys. He's got 13 total, so a lot of Grammys for an artist. And I couldn't choose the top 3 songs for him. I mean, there's just so many, but to name a few, you know, Beat It, Rock With You, Black and White, The Way You Make Me Feel, you know, Remember the Time. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. But yeah, that's it for Michael.
So we also wanted to mention 2 honorable mentions. So I will tell you that I was thinking about possibly putting the Foo Fighters on there. Dave Grohl, he's big.
man.
He's a big influence. You know, he's in Nirvana. Kind of got me started on him. Then he moved on. They got great songs. One of my favorite songs is Everlong. Everlong is like one of my favorite songs of like all time. And then the other one is Blink-182, and that's also because like I basically grew up around Blink-182. I seen them in concert. They were amazing. What about you? What are your honorable mentions?
Yeah, no, I mean those are definitely good too. My top 2 or my honorable mention 2 were Fleetwood Mac. It was close. They missed the cut. I'm a little sad about it. I wanted to drop some knowledge on people, but yeah, obviously a great band. Has had a few different lineups, but the most popular ones probably were the one with Stevie Nicks that everyone knows. But they had some good songs before that too, with like Peter Green and different lineups. My favorite album of theirs is Rumors. That's the 8th best-selling album of all time. So it says something for them. And that album was just great. You know, it was super genuine. A lot of people were in relationships. Stevie Nicks, their guitarist, and, you know, the bassist, and Christine McVie, and, you know, you had adultery and relationship problems, and then they went in the studios and they sang about it. And I mean, it really brings you into their personal life, and it's a really genuine, you know, place to go with music. Another fun fact about that Rumors album, everything was recorded separately. They all recorded in separate studios, besides the guitar solos and the drums, at the same time, because they have to have them at the same time. But everything else was recorded separately, so definitely a different process in how they recorded it too. But my second one would be Jim Croce. Interesting story from Jim Croce. If you don't know him, he didn't really get popular until he was about 33, which is pretty late for an artist. Great acoustic folk style music artist. Got a lot of popular songs, and he had his fair share of success, got pretty big, and then a few years later, he died in a plane crash. And it's kind of a sad story, but I mean, his music lives on. He wrote all his songs, and a lot of his stuff is really, powerful music. Time in a Bottle, Walking Back to Georgia, I Got a Name, songs like that just, great acoustic songs that really have some true, meaning behind them.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't know much about Jim Croce until you showed me him, and there's a lot of songs that you'll hear and you'll realize like you've already heard those before.
Oh, he's great.
But other than that, please comment down below. Tell us if we missed someone. Tell me if you like the new format with two people, or you like the one format. But other than that, folks, the video's over. But we'll be back next week with another video.
This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end.